This is Dr. Flight. I hope you're doing great today. This is a weekly roundup, and this is actually going to be a combined weekly roundup for weeks 14 and 15, which I'll explain in just a moment. I hope you're doing well. I hope this week is going good for you. Just a touch base on a couple things. The There has been a request by a few folks to post the test for early because some folks have some obligations towards the first week of May, and the first week of May is technically the end of the semester. It's when the term ends. It's the end of, and that week is kind of like an exam week, and then we have some graduation ceremonies and such. So I know there are a lot of activities going on, so I went ahead and I created and posted a test. You'll notice that this test has just 3 questions on it. It's still the same point value as our other tests. So this exam 4 or test 4, if you will, and I don't know if that's legible or readable, but this is also posted again in Moodle, so you'll see this as 3 questions. So I would expect a fairly good thoughtful response for all 3 of these. And you can just kind of read through these. If you have any questions, obviously ask. Feel free to reach out. I'm happy to walk through any questions that you may have on test number 4. Okay, the due date is still May 3rd. I'll grade over that weekend and get those turned around so that final grades can be submitted. Um, and also I have other grades that I'm in the process of finishing up for you, as well as I'm sure you've noticed grades populating in Moodle, so that should be make some good headway, giving you up to date accounting of your grades this weekend, and that's kind of the goal there. So, anyways, we're moving right along, and this kind of brings us up to the end of the semester, or the end of the material. This week's content is on supply chain management, and more importantly, when you think about supply chains, we think about um, where we get our materials from to do our production or value creation that we're going to do. But then, equally important, if not more important for us, we think about the channel that will carry the product or the service to the end user. So there's 2 sides to this coin. It's the supply chain that comes to you, and it's the channel by which your end product gets to the customer. What makes all of this work deals with something called relationship marketing. And so it's important, really super important, to grab the concept of 1 firm, 2 firms, 3 firms, 4, all working together in concert with each other in a system in order to bring value to the customer and the end user. So this is like a process where there's usually somebody called a channel member or channel captain who organizes the channel or who has the most power in the channel. But this is like a synergistic effort where many companies work together. Whether they know they are or not, it isn't really the point, but they're working together in a cohesive system to bring a product to market. So don't think of just one company, Apple, being like responsible for creating the product, developing the product, and putting the product in your hands. The result of what you have in your hand is from many companies working together in various capacities to make that happen. And that's really what we think of when we talk about relationship marketing, and this idea how it fits into like business to business organizational structures and business to business and the stuff that we have to talk about this week. So if we're going to look at this sort of in depth and kind of go a little bit in terms of what we're doing this specific week, we're looking again at value chains, channels, relationship marketing. So a couple things that you think, the changing role of marketing, this paper here, is kind of an older academic paper. And it walks through 7 different steps or stages of relationships that firms have, which is really kind of some seminal. It's a good base reading to kind of think about when you look at this interfirm relationship stuff. Then we've got 3 amazingly good examples of how firms rely on each other or have relationships with each other that can be contentious. And in all 3 of these examples, there's friction, there's a challenge that's happening as a result of interfirm relationships that were formed in order to create either a supply chain relationship or a channel relationship. So in the Apple story, it's about Apple acquiring a company that makes sapphire, and that didn't work out well. And the big chain puts a lock on first run movies. That's a article that deals with a small independent movie theater dealing with producers who are distributing movies into areas that have what they call a clearance or a space around them that's protected. So this is like it's a firm, it's a structural issue with that industry, but it's all about the relationships you have with the producers and your competitors. The PBR course one is a super interesting article. There are 2 articles there actually, and one of your test questions is on that relationship that PBR and Miller Coors entered into back in 1999. So all of these are really interesting examples of how interfirm relationships can work, but also where strife and challenges kind of happen in them as well. Now the chapter text again, this textbook we have, it doesn't always cover in depth the 4 Ps, so there's some of that. The Principles of Marketing textbook again is a good, just kind of a base of knowledge. So if you're not from a marketing background, just having that handy is helpful to review, just give you some basis of that. So anyways, that's what the messages are here this week. What we're kind of thinking about relationship marketing, value, and stuff like that. So that's that. Now, the second thing that I want to talk to you about is where we're going to go from here. One of the challenges is we reach the end of the semester and there's not a lot of time left to get into a lot of new material. We have 1 week left, and typically what we do in that particular week is, well, there are 3 things we'll often talk about. We'll talk about some elements of media, advertising and media, and talk a little bit about media planning and budgeting. Another thing that we'll often talk about is an idea associated with co-creation of value. So value co-creation, that's kind of a standalone thing. Another thing that we sometimes talk about is forecasting. In other words, next week's kind of a catch-all for some topics. They tend to be random topics that the students want to talk about, but haven't fit them in the rest of the course. So what we're going to do this term is simply stop at this point and not add new material next week. So what you're going to notice in Moodle will be there's no longer a tile here for the last week. We also no longer have this last week 15 reflection. It's just going to be this week's reflection. That'll be it. And we will not have the additional discussion for next week either. I'm trying to find it here. The discussion forum will be omitted as well. The Impact on the term is really minimal by not doing this, and not adding this new content. We've covered a lot of material. We've done a lot of work. We've read a lot of articles. We've looked at a lot of theory this semester. Certainly a heavy dose, and you all are really to be applauded with all the work that you've done. I'm super happy with what you've done and where we are. And pulling together this last week, and reviewing this material, just came to the realization that I think we're at a good spot where we are if we finish up strong with this supply chain management work. And so that's one reason why when you look at that final test, test four, there's just, again, three questions on it. Now, again, I would hope that you put extra effort into each of those three questions. I expect a lot. I mean, you've got well over a week to do that exam. So my expectation would be that that exam is done with a lot of depth and a lot of content, a lot of effort. Um, so because the point value is still 100 points, and we'll kind of go from there. So if you have any questions about this, certainly reach out. I'm excited about where we are and what we're doing, and I always like to hear feedback from you. So please do that. But again, looking at this schedule, kind of where we are and what we've been doing, we're in this material here. Then moving to next week, what we will do is simply have this content exam. Okay, so it'll be available for you. It's still due, like we would always have it due. It's just available for you early. That's all, and gives you a little bit more time to work on it and go from there. Okay, so we talked about supply chain a little bit here in this roundup. We talked about our schedule here a little bit in this roundup. Again, I think if you have any questions, you've been great about letting me know if something didn't look right, or if you had something that you were curious about. Please continue to do that. Please let me know how everything's going. Thanks. Have a great weekend. Have a great week, and I'll touch base again with you next week.